Hello and welcome back to Under Review. It has been a while since we've last talked to you guys. We still have nothing. It's over.
We lost.
That's a good intro. And let's get into it.
We lost.
Okay. Welcome back to Under Review. Lots has happened since we've last talked to you, so we are going to dive into some of that tournament play, round of 16, 8, that Final Four and national championship game. But before we get to it, I'm Bri and
And I'm Grant Mangle. Let's get into it.
Although it feels like ages ago, that round of 16 game was not too long ago, facing Indiana, and the Huskies got away pretty simple for a March Madness game. Then they moved on to the much tougher competitor. That was NC State, who won off of Notre Dame with Reina Perez with the steal, and you could tell by that game that neither team wanted to go home. An absolute double overtime thriller, and that's what got us into that Final Four national championship. Sadly, we lost a key element to our team right before heading to Minnesota, and that was Dorka Juhas, as she got injured on her wrist during the NC State game. How do you think this kind of impacted the team going into Minnesota in any of those games?
I mean, before that even, it clearly impacted them during the NC State game. UConn was up 9 points at the time when Dorka, or 7 or 9 at the time when Dorka went down, and you could see the team was visibly shaken right there. I mean, the team was coming over to the bench crying, and it was a pretty nasty, gruesome kind of, dislocation, fracture, injury. And so that made that game a lot more difficult, double overtime then, all that stuff happened. But they get through it, and then going into Minnesota, you're missing your sixth man, your big off the bench, and that just makes it a lot harder on us when we've got Aaliyah and Olivia Nelson-Ododa, who tend to get into foul trouble more often than not. And when you need that third big to be able to come in and not have it, it kind of just changes how you play the game completely.
I think that Dorka Juhas injury was just absolutely heartbreaking, especially at that point in time. She's worked all year. She had to deal with a slight injury during the year. She transferred here. She kind of found her way in super quickly. And it's just tough to have to miss out on championship weekend, but some good came out of it as she announced that she was coming back and she's going to be essential for next year. But I do agree with the fact that it did play a large role in that big rotation, because Olivia and Aaliyah are the big foulers, and we saw it in a lot of the games, especially going into those Stanford and South Carolina games. So after they escaped NC State, they faced Stanford. I think that NC State game kind of showed what our team could do, and I think it kind of scared those other Final Four teams because either of those teams really left it all on the court, and to be able to work that hard, go into that many overtimes, and just the shot for shot for shot for shot, it really showed the high level that you can play at and how competitive our team was. So I think going off of that high into the tournament was good. And then we got into that Stanford game. Any initial thoughts?
That was an absolute war between us and Stanford. Gino and Tara, two of the best coaches ever to do it. They don't love each other, but they got great respect for each other. They know the ins and outs of each other's teams and how they like to play. So it was always going to be a close game coming in. Stanford, a number 1 overall seed, defending champion. Us, a number 2 seed, looking to get back to the glory. It never really felt like a game that UConn should lose. It felt like they were in control from the start, and although it never really got to double digits or anything like that, it was always close, always tight, but to me it never felt in doubt, and UConn was the better team on the court that night, and overall, I believe.
I completely agree. I think that Stanford's just a very similar team to us in their way of play and who they have. They're guard heavy. They got the Hall sisters, you got Haley Jones, and then you got Cameron Brink down low, which is very similar to our own Olivia Nelson-Ododa. So they definitely brought an equal amount of competition, but they just weren't on their mark as they have been in, per se, last year, their championship game. And I think that we really brought a lot of intensity and a good amount of play, especially Avina Westbrook, 3 after 3. When Avina starts going, you just can't stop her. You remember that early stretch she had in the South Carolina first game this year. She can be electric, and she really does change momentum on the court.
Absolutely. I mean, when she's on, like you said, she's on, and she stepped onto the court and looked confident and like the Vina Westbrook that we knew she could be coming into the season, what we saw last season, all of that. She really was a spark that she helped us not only get the lead early, but kind of grow it eventually and to make it a 6-point game, a 7-point game, and really give us a little bit of breathing room when that was definitely something we needed.
Everyone did pretty well, too. Paige, Easy, we had so many good contributions that game that it didn't have me that fearful going into our second matchup with South Carolina, although South Carolina escaped Louisville pretty easily for a March Madness game, so it didn't really show what the result of our second matchup could be, especially with it having been canceled in January. It was the game everyone wanted, so there was a lot of anticipation for it, and then we entered the national championship. Any initial thoughts on that?
I mean, the big thing that sticks out to me is the first quarter. You get down 22-8 at the end of the first. You give yourself a 14-point hole against who is the best team in the country all year long. And yeah, there was a handful of times where we cut it back down to 6, we cut it back down to 5, stuff like that happened. But you spend so much energy getting just that close that when they get a little burst, it just pushes you back out, and you just can't get over that hump, and you can't beat yourself against a good team like that. Getting absolutely dominated on the glass and then just turning the ball over more than 20 times, those things just aren't a recipe to win, especially when you're going up against the best competition in the country. And not to mention, we couldn't make a 3, and that's what it came down to. We couldn't shoot and we couldn't rebound, and that's why we lost by 15.
We were down by just enough that it wasn't able to get competitive to a point where we thought we could win. Mm-hmm. Even in those third and fourth quarters, you kind of saw it on our players. They were kind of like, what can we do at this point? They were almost losing hope. They wanted to win that game. It just didn't match up how it should have. Kristen Williams, a usual extremely dominant tournament player, had not a lot of points. And then we kind of saw a couple surprises. Him subbing Amari to Bri in the first half. Personally, I thought was a great move. Definitely threw Dawn Staley, as she might have not had that in her scouting report. And then throwing Caroline Ducharme in there for some extended minutes, which I thought was a great idea because she knows how to step up in those times. Obviously, we weren't able to pull away a win, but I think that she contributed a lot, although she did foul out. She stepped up against big competition, and she wasn't in during that first South Carolina game.
Yeah, the Amari DeBerry entrance into the game definitely shocked me a little bit, but that's product of Dorka not being healthy. If we have Dorka, those are her minutes, and I mean, she gets more than just the 2 or 3 minutes that Amari played, and she would have at this point, a better impact than Amari did too. I mean, when Dorka went out, she was playing, like Gino said, that was her best stretch of the year right there, right in that NC State game. She looked terrific, and I think we really could have used her against Aaliyah Boston down low, especially when we get out-rebounded how we did. And then Caroline, yeah, it was a great decision to put her in, I thought. I mean, really spaced the court out, and we know she can score. And when we were struggling to score, why not throw that in there? Someone who can hit threes, backdoor cuts, get down in the lane, and have tough finishes inside. I thought it was a really good move, and she ended up with 7-9 points herself, and one of the leading scorers on her team in the game. So it was really nice to see her get back to herself a little bit.
And as well as not having Kristen really there, we didn't have AZ, had food poisoning. The most unlucky thing to get before the national championship. Then they said Liv was even dealing with her hip, and then Avina rolls her ankle mid-game. Honestly, though, I couldn't attribute all those things to the reason we had that loss, as our teams dealt with adversity after adversity, so we know how to power through those things, and just not enough people were on that night. And South Carolina was on. Just a well-oiled machine. Destiny Henderson dropping 26 points. Leah Boston barely were fouling, so it was just a recipe for success for them.
Yeah, I mean, they were the better team on that night, and like you said, even if AZ doesn't have food poisoning, lives at 100% on that night, I don't know if we still beat them at that point, honestly. Sure, AZ can get hot from 3 and totally change the game, but they were the better team that night. They deserve the national championship.
I think that game could play out so many different ways, and it will for the next couple years. And I think it's tough that it had to end like that, because that's the thing with March Madness. Only one team ends up happy. But if you kind of look back at our entire season and see that accomplishment, I think that is very important to recognize out of this team. We've mentioned adversity time and time again, but it is truly impressive how much they've been through and how much each of them individually improved. And we made it further than we did last year. And I think that's an accomplishment in ourselves. I know Paige had that quote that was heartbreaking, That was at UConn, it's national championship or nothing. And although that is the mentality and they have these Stewie reputation to live up to, I think that they should be proud of how much they did accomplish this year.
Yeah, going into the season, it definitely was national championship or bust. I mean, that's the view that this program always has. But once you start to see how the season plays out, all the injuries, the COVID, everything that this team faced, no, this was definitely a success of a season. They really left it all out there, getting to the Final Four, 14th straight year, the double overtime thrilling win there. That was incredible by itself. Beating the defending champions in Stanford to get to the national title game, another awesome win for the program. They definitely shouldn't be hanging their heads and feel disappointed, especially the seniors. They've had great careers here. Yes, they didn't get to their ultimate end goal, but they left the program in good hands, and it's still just a bright future for this team.
We are losing Kristen, Olivia, and Davina very soon, as the WNBA draft is Monday. They do not get a break at all, but they are such key contributions to this team. It's really upsetting to see them go, and my heart does break for them, as they do deserve a national championship, and it's tough because winning a college national championship is so different than a WNBA championship, and they have to move on so quickly, but I really do think they should be proud of all they accomplished here. And moving on to next year, we have new people, Aina Patterson, Azuna Brady, and honestly, I think we could get someone from the transfer portal.
Yeah, that's the way basketball is trending now, that people are unhappy they don't get playing time. We saw it happen to our team this year. Saylor and Mir both left mid-season, which you don't see that too much, but there's plenty of people in the portal, plenty of new faces to bring into the program to help us win a championship, and most people still want to come play at UConn. It's a great program, great facilities, and they're going to want to be a part of this. And going into next year, not only the new recruits, but we've got Amari staying on campus over the summer trying to improve her game. We'll have AZ, a full offseason healthy, trying to get her game up to her standard. Nika, we're going to need to see her try to push that offensive game forward a little bit more next year. Paige, year 3. I mean, it's going to be a very exciting time to be a UConn Husky fan.
It's crazy these sophomores felt like freshmen yesterday, and they're going to be the upperclassmen of next year. But I think with the lineup we have, I would like to see a transfer that's a forward, someone big down low. It's something we always need. I've heard a couple names thrown around a lot from Maryland, but I'd be interested to see who we get. I love Dorka now, and I think that she wasn't someone that everyone had on their list, but Gina really finds great people and who we really need to make this team better. But yeah, I'm hopeful looking into next year, and I'm pretty satisfied with how this year went.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, when you find Dorka, that's credit to the coaching staff and the scouting department to really do their due diligence and find who's going to fit this team and what role they can play. And I think that they can go replicate that again and find a key contributor for next year.
So the question I really had on my mind is, with such a strange, unpredictable season, looking back at maybe our first episode or even before the season started, what do you think would be the most surprising thing about this season that you've come to learn that you wouldn't have believed then?
For me, I think it's Caroline Ducharme. I did have her as my freshman to watch out for coming into the season on the women's basketball preview, but I never imagined that she would come into a starting role and be the team's leading scorer for a handful of games this year. She really carried us through that middle stretch when we only had 5, 6, 7 players available. She held the team together. And the reason we were a 2 seed and had a chance to play in Bridgeport is because of her. And I never would have guessed that coming into the season.
She was definitely under the radar. She said it multiple times herself, but I think we can never forget how much Caroline did for us in those times that we were at our lowest. She stepped up more than you could ever imagine, and that's just a notable effort that will definitely impact how she does in the coming years. We could see it in that Big East Award, being named second team as a freshman. It's just really impressive, and I know she hasn't gotten those minutes in the past 4 to 5 games, but she definitely should not forget about that mid-season stretch. Personally, I don't think Nika Mule's performance surprised me, but I think it surprised many. There were comments before saying maybe Nika will transfer, maybe Nika won't get a lot of minutes, but Nika has a very important quality that's needed on the court. She changes the pace of the game, winning Big East Defensive Player of the Year. She just brings something that not a lot of other people do. I think Caroline almost has a similar energy. They're just very gritty. They get in there, and I'm just really proud with how Nika did this year.
Yeah, she definitely has a role on this team, and not only does she know what it is, she embraces it. She loves the role that she's in. I think that it's very crucial, like you said, to this team. She's the motor, she's the heart. It's something that we're going to need a little more of next year, a little more toughness, I think, too.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to come next year. A lot of these players we didn't even get to see that much out of. Paige, only a couple games before the tournament. And then AZ only came back around like the DePaul game. So I think that once these players get a full season in, it's going to be unstoppable. But congratulations to South Carolina for the national championship win. And I'm excited for ours next year. But sadly, Grant will not be here as he is a graduating senior. So to all our under review fans, I know you're pretty upset that it might just be me, but I'll definitely see you next year. It's been a great season. So glad to be a part of it. Proud of the entire team and proud of the work we've done here at UCTV. So enjoy the off season. Take a break from all that basketball. But until the next time, I'm Bri.
And I'm Grant Mangle. Thanks for watching.